Alright guys, I am back with my review of American Horror Story Coven, Episode 3, The Replacements. And this one starts off with a flashback. It goes back to 1971. We see a younger Fiona talking to the Supreme at the time. And apparently, as a new Supreme rises and grows stronger, the old Supreme gets weaker. Which is exactly what I think is going to happen with Fiona and Zoe. So Fiona's acting kind of cocky, and she says, "I'm ready to take over as Supreme." And the old Supreme says, "Well, you have to perform the 7 wonders." And Fiona says, "I can do that. You just don't want me to because you don't want to be replaced." So the old Supreme gets in her face, and she says, "Don't test my wrath. I've seen the future of what you bring to this coven, and I'd rather see you in hell than have that happen." So Fiona cuts her throat, just straight up kills her. Right in front of the butler Jeeves. So Jeeves sees all of this happen, and it goes back to present day, and Fiona sees Jeeves and says, "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" So I guess she's the one who cut his tongue out. But I assume she had to perform some type of spell, because just cutting his tongue out doesn't mean he can't tell the other witches that she killed the Supreme. He could still write it down or something. Then we see Fiona at a bar, and she's upset that no one's hitting on her. So now she's talking to a plastic surgeon. Zoe goes to talk to Kyle's mother, who was about to kill herself until Zoe called. And they're talking about Kyle, and the entire time I'm just thinking, man, Zoe is really obsessed with this guy. She met him at a party, and he's like her entire world instantly. It's kind of creepy. Then we see Kathy Bates. This was awesome. She's watching television, and it shows Obama as president, and she starts crying. So that was really funny. And Fiona makes Kathy Bates the maid of the school. So she has to serve all the other girls at dinner, and she's pissed off she has to serve Queenie. And Fiona tells Kathy Bates that from now on, she's going to be Queenie's personal slave. Now, the only problem I had with this was, what was up with those weird camera angles when they're sitting at the dinner table? Who thought that was a good idea? It just looks stupid. We see Misty talking to Kyle. More of this Stevie Nicks bullshit. So ridiculous. But Zoe shows up. She's there to pick Kyle up and take him home. And Misty doesn't want to let him go. And I have a feeling that Kyle was probably raped a few times staying with Misty's crazy ass. It's kind of disturbing, but he can't really talk. And Zoe's not even sure if he remembers who she is. But she tells Misty, "I gotta take him home, I'll come back for you." And Misty is just, she lets him go, but you know this girl's gonna be trouble in the future. Madison and Nan go to meet this new neighbor boy who they think is hot. So they go over with a cake, and Madison immediately comes off as a total hoe. This was so funny. And they're talking to the neighbor boy, and his mom comes in. And we find out that they're ultra religious. So the first thing Madison does is insult their religion. And the mom gets pissed off and grabs her hand while Madison's cutting a piece of cake. And Madison throws the knife across the room. And the mom says, "I don't want you to ever talk to my son again." And Madison and Nan leave. And as they're leaving, Madison sets their curtains on fire, which she didn't even know she could do until now. So her powers are growing. And she's getting more dangerous. Zoe takes Kyle home, drops him off, leaves him with his mother. And watching Kyle stumble around like a mentally challenged Frankenstein monster is so fucking lame. This is a terrible storyline. Then we see Fiona talking to the plastic surgeon. He says there's something wrong with her immune system. It's dropping. Which I guess means there's a new Supreme coming up. And he says they can't perform the surgery. No plastic surgeon would perform this. Then we see Cordelia talking to a doctor. And the doctor says, I'm sorry, you just can't get pregnant. And she says, there's nothing you can do? Did you not just try to, like, summon the devil to get you pregnant? And that didn't work? So now you think this doctor's gonna do something? Like, that just blew my mind. But I'm sure she's gonna end up pregnant anyways. Then we see the religious neighbor. She comes over to the school to talk to Fiona and tells her she doesn't want these girls coming near her son. And Fiona just insults her, but she says, if they come back around, I'm going to press charges. That one slutty girl set my curtains on fire somehow. And she leaves, and then Fiona sees Madison and asks her to light her cigarette, and she does with her mind. So now Fiona suspects that Madison might be the next Supreme, which will probably lead to Fiona trying to kill Madison, but I think it's all a swerve. I don't think Madison's the next Supreme, because in the flashback they mentioned something about how even an average witch can have like 5 powers, but they can't do the 7 wonders. And I think that's Madison, but Fiona's got it confused, and Zoe is going to be the real Supreme. Well, it looks like the rape's not over for Kyle, because his mother just raped him. This was ridiculous. Honestly, I think that... I have no idea who's writing this show, but I honestly think that they just take a bunch of topics and throw them at the wall and just go with whatever sticks. Like fucking minotaurs and incest and satanic rituals. It's just so over the top and unnecessary. But it did make me wonder about one thing. Kyle is clearly damaged. And at some point, they're going to have to take him to the hospital, right? And he's made up of all these different body parts, so isn't that going to screw up his DNA when they test him or do blood work or something? Unless the spell just goes with whatever the head of the body is. I don't know. I know I'm reading way too much into this, but the only original part of Kyle is the head. Everything else is different. And it's also weird that he just shows up at the house and his mom doesn't ask any questions. The first thing she does is molest him. She doesn't call the police or the hospital or anything. Cordelia goes to see Marie, the voodoo priestess, I guess you would say. And she wants to do a fertility spell so that she can get pregnant. And Marie tells her, well, you have to get like 2 ounces of your husband's semen in some glass jar and bring it to us. And then I have to eat a chili pepper. And then I have to pour goat's blood on your vagina. I'm not making this shit up. This is what it just told us. And it's going to cost $50,000. And Cordelia says, I'll find the money. Somehow I will get this money to you, because you're my only hope. And then Marie just starts laughing and says, I would never perform this spell for you. Even though we have a 100% success rate, you were born into the wrong tribe. And your mother is my sworn enemy, and she came here looking to start a war. So then Cordelia cries. Just when you thought this episode could not possibly get any stranger, the Minotaur shows up. Oh my god. Where do I begin with this? So Queenie and Kathy Bates are eating dinner. And Kathy Bates sees the Minotaur outside running around. And she tells Queenie. Queenie doesn't believe her, but then the Minotaur like charges the door. And they hear it. And Kathy Bates is like, please help me, we gotta hide. So Queenie says, okay, I'll handle this. And then as Kathy Bates is leaving, she's like, wait a minute, slave. She still calls her slave. And she cuts Kathy Bates' hand and puts her blood on this towel. So Kathy Bates runs off, and Queenie goes outside, and she uses the blood to lure the Minotaur into some shed. And then she tries to have sex with the Minotaur. And that's it. She tries to have sex with the Minotaur. There's nothing else to say. The Minotaur comes up behind her and grabs her. I don't know if that means he killed her or he raped her. Who the hell knows? But this was just... She tries to have sex with the Minotaur. Then we see Kyle's mother And she calls Zoe and says that Kyle's acting strange. And we see Kyle in his room, and he's like rocking back and forth. And his mom says, your friend Zoe's coming over. And then she tries to have sex with him again. And Kyle freaks out. He says no. And he grabs a trophy and he beats his mother to death with it. Zoe shows up and she sees Kyle covered in blood. Meanwhile, Fiona is telling Madison that she wants to help her. She wants to train her. And they go out and Fiona gets Madison drunk, and then they come back home to the school. And she's telling her about the past Supremes and how Madison is the next Supreme. And that she's dying. Her life force is flowing into Madison. And she has cancer, and she won't make it through the year. So she grabs the knife she killed the original Supreme with, and she tells Madison to kill her. And Madison's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. And they're going back and forth, and then Fiona just cuts Madison's throat and kills her. And guess who's there watching this? Fucking Jeeves. Oh, that guy. He's like the sneaky butler in Mr. Deeds, that Adam Sandler movie. He just shows up. And Fiona tells Jeeves to go bury her. And that was it. And you know what's going to happen is Fiona thinks she's safe now. She thinks she killed the girl that was going to be the next Supreme, so she's safe. Her medical problems are going to go away, but because I'm pretty sure it's Zoe, they're only going to continue to get worse. But that was the episode this week. I have to say, this one was better than last week's episode because there was a lot of entertaining stuff. Even though some of it was completely ludicrous. Like, now that Kyle has killed his mother, was the incest necessary? I feel like they did that just for shock value. There was really no storyline purpose for the incest. You could have said he's a Frankenstein monster, he's crazy, so he killed his mother. Did she really have to rape him? So yeah, that didn't really need to be in this episode, but it did have some entertaining stuff, and they tried to introduce some new characters, like you have the neighbor Luke and his mother. So I did enjoy this episode, but some of this stuff, my God, it's just so out there that I feel it's just going to get worse. That's what's going to happen here. I would like to see the show get more serious, like the first season, but I feel like at this point they're just doing whatever the hell they feel like it. And if this season isn't the jump the shark season, then I think by season 4 it's just going to be a fucking free-for-all. Like outer space aliens, monsters from the ocean, all types of shit just bombarded on one show. But anyways, that's my review of this episode. Hope you guys liked the video. Leave your thoughts on this episode in the comments, and thanks for watching. Bye. He's like her entire world, instantly. It's kind of creepy. Then we see Kathy Bates. This was awesome. She's watching television, and it shows Obama as president, and she starts crying. So that was really funny. And Fiona makes Kathy Bates the maid of the school. So she has to serve all the other girls and have that happen. So Fiona cuts her throat. Just straight up kills her. Right in front of the butler Jeeves. So Jeeves sees all of this happen. Then it goes back to present day. And Fiona sees Jeeves and says, "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" So I guess she's the one who cut his tongue out. But I assume she had to perform some type of spell, because just cutting his tongue out doesn't mean he can't tell the other witches that she killed the Supreme. What's going to happen with Fiona and Zoe? So Fiona's acting kind of cocky, and she says, "I'm ready to take over as Supreme." And the old Supreme says, "Well, you have to perform the 7 wonders." And Fiona says, "I can do that. You just don't want me to because you don't want to be replaced." So the old Supreme gets in her face, and she says, "Don't test my wrath. I've seen the future of what you bring to this coven, and I'd rather see you in hell." Alright guys, I am back with my review of American Horror Story Coven, Episode 3, The Replacements. And this one starts off with a flashback. It goes back to 1971. We see a younger Fiona talking to the Supreme at the time. And Apparently, as a new Supreme rises and grows stronger, the old Supreme gets weaker. Which is exactly what I think Supreme. He could still write it down or something. Then we see Fiona at a bar, and she's upset that no one's hitting on her. So now she's talking to a plastic surgeon. Zoe goes to talk to Kyle's mother, who was about to kill herself until Zoe called. And they're talking about Kyle, and the entire time I'm just thinking, man, Zoe is really obsessed with this guy. She met him at a party, and